Hey, Motorman here. And if you're wondering why I'm in the garage, it's because my neighbor is mowing the lawn. It's very loud. And the birds, the hawks, are still here squawking away. I haven't shot them yet. If it wasn't for my wife, I would have shot them. But anyway, the last video I did talking about the 5 heavyweight motorcycles that are the most difficult to handle at low speeds, I got hate mail like you wouldn't believe from that. So many people don't want to admit when they're wrong or that they have no clue what they're talking about. I've tested all these bikes and I know. And of the heavyweight motorcycles, you may hate to hear this, but the Harley-Davidson is the best or easiest to learn at low speeds. It's got the shortest wheelbase and the shortest rake of any motorcycle weighing over 800 pounds. And especially the Goldwing people, they started crying. I mean, I got regular mail that was covered with tears from these guys. They were crying so much. They're talking about it's got the Goldwings, a lower center of gravity, blah, blah, blah. No one ever sent me a video of them doing an 18 by 36 figure 8 on a Goldwing, which, by the way, is possible. But nobody sent me any kind of video like that. They just started, blabbing away, and because they're commenters and they're experts. But I'm going to explain to you why the DCT Goldwing is very difficult to handle. It is capable, but you got to have a really expert rider. And the regular Goldwing, even with the clutch, very difficult at low speeds. I'll explain in detail why that is. I'll show you some video about it. And it doesn't mean the bike is bad. It just means that you better be really good to be able to handle that bike at low speeds. And if you're wondering what this motorcycle is behind me, well, I'm going to tell you all about that in a few days. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you hear all about it. So as luck would have it, this past weekend I happened to have 2 Goldwings in the class. These are pre-2018 models, and these Goldwings weigh 940 pounds according to the specs. By the way, the newer ones are about 850 or so, still very heavy. Of course, both of these have a clutch on them, and we've got one rider, the one you see right here, who rides up in the mountains, has ridden hundreds of thousands of miles, but has never practiced low-speed handling. We've got another rider on a yellow Goldwing, you're going to see him in just a moment, who has practiced. He's ridden a lot of miles, but he has practiced his low-speed handling, and it shows because he was pretty good, especially when I consider for Goldwing riders. And I'm not saying anything bad about Goldwing riders. I'm just saying if you don't practice on these bikes, as I said, low-speed handling is quite difficult. This rider did a good job, had a couple of drops, but he knew what he was doing and knew what the techniques were, and he just needed me to refine those techniques for him. Now notice this bike coming up right now. This is a cruiser type motorcycle. That's actually a Yamaha 1600. In fact, that's the first one of those that came to my class, but very similar to the Harley-Davidson, I'd say Fat Boy or Heritage models. In other words, it doesn't lean very far before you actually hear the board start to scrape. But the reason that the Goldwing is difficult to learn at low speeds, it's not incapable. It's that it's difficult to learn to ride the motorcycle at low speeds for a couple of reasons. Number one, very sensitive throttle. The slightest movement of the throttle causes the bike to leap straight ahead if you're not in that sweet spot of the friction zone. Now, if you're on a DCT, a Goldwing with a DCT automatic transmission, finding that sweet spot between just enough throttle and just enough rear brake is very difficult. It's much harder than it will be with a clutch model. So if you think you're going to buy one of those because you suck at low speeds, so you're going to get an automatic, well, it's going to be the exact opposite. It's going to take a lot more practice. It's not impossible. In fact, in my new Ride Like a Pro experience video, we have a professional rider, a motor officer, on a DCT wing, and it was his very first time on the wing, and he had no time to warm up, just got on the bike and rode through the exercises, and he did terrific. But he's a professional rider. He knows the techniques in and out. It's what he does for a living. Similar to me. Of course, I'm retired now, but I can get on a DCT wing and do things with the motorcycle that I guarantee 99% of the people who buy that bike cannot do. The other 1%, and you'll see them on YouTube, the DCT wing doing very well, and every one of them says the same thing. Before they got the DCT wing, they had a regular Goldwing, and they were very good at handling the bike at low speeds, and still it took them quite a while to get the hang of that DCT. And another thing about the Goldwings is the handlebars don't turn near as far as most cruiser motorcycles from lock to lock. And the further the handlebars turn from lock to lock, the more or the easier it's going to be to handle at low speeds. most of the course that you see here, you would not need full lock for. Now here's this rider, as I said, he's good, but you can still make mistakes. There's virtually no room for error on a Goldwing. You got to know how to use your head and eyes to the extreme. You got to know how to use that clutch. And again, the clutch also, there's a very short friction zone I found on the Goldwings. That combined with the throttle that's extremely sensitive, and I've tried rain mode and all the different modes. I noticed virtually no difference with them at low speeds. Maybe a difference out on the highway, I couldn't tell you that, but riding it through the course, I noticed virtually no difference on them. And those things make it difficult to handle at low speeds. Not impossible. The motorcycle is capable. The good thing about the Goldwings is they've got a 40-degree lean angle. Compared to the Harley-Davidson touring bikes with the 32-degree lean angle, you would think they would handle even better than the Harley. But there's a lot of mass here. They're long motorcycles. They've got a long rake compared to the Harley anyway. And that wheelbase is longer. All these things make for not the most nimble bikes without a lot of practice. If you put the hours in and you get out there and you practice, if you just buy a Goldwing now and you're coming from any other kind of motorcycle, any other heavyweight motorcycle, you're going to have some problems. You need to practice. You got to know these techniques like the back of your hand, especially if you got a passenger on the back. Because if you got a passenger on the back, that's going to put the weight that much up higher. And that does make it a little bit more difficult. Not impossible. They handle great at high speeds. For instance, if you're coming around a curve, there's a particular curve that at a Harley-Davidson at the limit where it's scraping the floorboards and almost the frame, and the fastest you can go on the Harley is 60 miles an hour around that particular curve. I guarantee you the Goldwing will probably do 70 to 75 on that same curve. That's because of the greater lean angle, but that has nothing to do with low speed handling. They are a handful. This rider you see here, he's been to the class 3 or 4 times. I don't know how much practice he puts in when he's not in the class, but he has a real problem finding that sweet spot between just enough throttle and just enough rear brake. And yes, I've ridden that bike and I've tried it in the different modes. And once again, rain mode, rain is better than the regular mode, but it's still extremely sensitive as compared to a V-twin motorcycle. And don't tell me if you're riding a Goldwing, you say, well, the low speeds aren't important. Nobody goes slow. Well, if you go 50 miles an hour, at some point you had to get to 50 miles an hour, and you had to get there by going 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., all the way up to whatever speed you're riding at. Most crashes occur at 20 miles per hour or below. So if you have to avoid an obstacle and you're going 50 miles an hour, you hit the brakes hard. By the time you get to the obstacle, you're generally going below 20 miles per hour. And if you don't know how to lean, turn, and swerve, you are in deep trouble, especially if you don't turn your head and eyes and look where you want to put that front tire. So here's a rider who's really practiced before he got to the class. As you can see, he's whipping that bike around like a toy. That's not a DC T-Wing, it's got the clutch, but he does a great job. It just takes more practice on a motorcycle like that. And I also included the BMWs in that for very similar reasons. Also, very sensitive throttle, and on the BMW, it's sensitive brakes as well. So don't think you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't. All I'm telling you is if you want to be good at it, if you want to be able to avoid obstacles out on the road at low speeds, yeah, you better put that practice in. This rider did that. This is the most difficult, what most people consider the most difficult exercise on my course, the Snowman, because you get so many cones in a confined space and you're turning in both directions. But this rider's got it nailed, did it several times in a row, no problem at all. This is a Harley Heritage. Rider never practiced, but he picked it up really quick because those are easy motorcycles to ride, despite the fact they only have a 24-degree lean angle. But the handlebars turn very far from lock to lock, and his clutch and throttle are very easy on it because you got a heavy flywheel. But the Goldwing is more difficult. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe if you never rode any other motorcycle and you practice low speeds, you'd think it was fine. But if you went from a Harley Davidson or even that Yamaha 1600, yeah, you're going to have some problems. Got to get in the hours of practice. There's no question about it. But I hope you enjoyed this. And I'm telling you, folks, it's not that the bike can't do it. The bike is capable. The question is, are you capable? And the only way to get capable and to get really good is to put in the practice. Till next time.